Fortunately. So in Taiwan, apparently, they all use public transport. A lot of them use the metro. So they're on their devices listening to music till they come to the platform. And while they're waiting at the platform, they're all looking at their, their mobiles and tablets and doing something. If the train is supposed to come at 5:38 p.m., 5:38 p.m. the train will arrive, the gates will open, everyone goes in, 5:39 gates shut, and after that everyone is back again on their devices. There is no communication of any sort. So tablet usage or mobile usage at those points are the highest, right? And then just think of that, when an entire nation is actually going home or in transit and you know maximum of them use it, you know your servers are going to be hit most at that point. So how would you cater for testing on different times at different times of day for different types of usage? And what is the type of usage? That's another very interesting study. What types of app do people usually use at different times in the day? Right? Are they using media apps? Are they using productivity apps? Are they using, commerce or retail type apps and so on? How would you test for things like that? So this is something interesting that you should think about when you are doing mobile app testing. So what should some of the other goals be when you talk about mobile app testing? So these days, I wake up in the morning and that's probably the only quiet time I have for 5-10 minutes when I wake up to go check up what's happening on Facebook, right? Or to figure out what the latest updates are. So how is it tying into my life, right? How is this app tying into my life and how am I testing for that experience, right? So if I had to, with my eyes half closed, go enter some username, password, and then try to scroll through a big list, does that have good experience? Probably not. I probably never look at Facebook next time when I wake up in the morning. But how do I make it, tie into my life? How do I test for something like that? How do I try to see that the end goal is being achieved? The end goal is not always a sale, the end goal is not always a like on a comment. The end goal is did he get value out of it? Some value that might not even be measurable or quantifiable at this point. How to test for things like that. So these are interesting aspects to think about. So we already spoke about this where we talked about the different types of applications you could build for mobile, right? That could be native, it could be hybrid, depending, or it could be a bunch of different types when it comes to hybrid. Now, testing for responsive design is a very interesting aspect, and we've been trying to think about how to automate something like this. So if I have it on a device, there are multiple people who come and say, we're building an application, and we know it works perfectly fine when it's in portrait mode, but I want to make sure that everything displays fine when it's in landscape mode. So how would you do something like that? How would you automate testing for that? Someone would say, I have a device which is of a particular form factor, I want to check if it's working fine on another. Now, what's interesting is that some of these device manufacturers or OS manufacturers like iOS and Android, for example, in their latest releases have actually come up with OSs that will help you do responsive design. Make sure you don't have to worry about it if you are building the app on that particular version. Any other version running the same, any other device running the same version should also work fine, so you wouldn't have to worry too much about that. Okay, so we're coming back again into the DevOps cycle now, having talked about the different types of things that you need to focus on when you're testing, right? Considering you've already mastered function testing, performance testing, how do you go into maybe user experience testing or usability testing, context testing, context simulations and testing, right? Those are some of the things. So when we come back to continuous feedback and monitoring, there are a bunch of things that happen. Now, when I go from so we said we already tested, right? Now, how do you test your mobile app? Because of the fragmentation that we talked about right at the beginning, where you saw a whole different set of platforms and so on, it makes sense to actually get a crowdsourced test. It's going to be impossible for a dedicated testing team to cover the entire gamut of devices, entire gamut of OSs, and do thorough testing there. So what a lot of organizations do in the enterprise is hire what is called crowdsourced testing model. So they have, let's say, 100 people who want to test out your app or try the beta version of your application. How would you distribute this application to them, right? So making it available, would everyone have to be connected on the internet? Would they have to go to a URL and then download it? Or can you do it a different way, right? So that's where we talk about over-the-air build distribution. We talk about that in more detail. Now, once the tester tests it, we already spoke about that, how is he going to find that bug, right? Does he have to enter, and go back to his PC, enter the details, I did this on this version, and so on, enter all that. So can you make that easier? That's where we talk about in-app bug reporting. Now, once it goes from the tester is certified, says, okay, seems like most of it works fine, let's go into production. You go out into the app store, the end users start picking it up. Now, let's say some user unfortunately, or many times these days unfortunately, encounters a crash with your app. So how would he report that? Or how would he give you feedback on that, right? So that's where we talk about in-app user feedback. And having done all of that, how would he be able to send the crash logs back to the developer so that the developer can analyze it? And how would your digital marketer or your product manager be able to mine sentiments? So if you can bring this entire cycle of events along with your testing, supplement it with your testing, this enables you to get into the DevOps model. And a lot of cloud services help you do this, right? So let's talk about over-the-air app distribution. So all you would need is a mobile number, and you would say you're interested in testing out an app. You register at one point, right? And that registration could happen from your mobile, it could happen from your laptop, or so on. Now, every time there is a build that is ready to be tested, that is made available by your development team, it automatically triggers an update or an install on your device because you're registered. So that's over-the-air app distribution. It makes it easy for you to bring your apps into the testers' devices. So this enables developers to distribute new builds to the testing teams or the testers. So how would you like a feature where, if you have something that's not nice or something that doesn't work all right, I just shake the device and it auto-populates a template for me of what is the device I'm testing, what is the app version I'm testing, what was the scenario that I just tried. Have it all automatically filled and a comment section for you to add any extra information. And say submit, this automatically gets reported to your developer as to what the issue was. So that's what we talk about as in-app bug reporting. It enables developers to receive bug reports from your crowdsourced testing organization. So let's say I can go into the application and enter feedback on the application, and that's what a lot of people do with the App Store. How about if you can do that, and how about if that is tied in with the app itself, where you can do direct user feedback and the developer knows exactly what the customers are doing. And then crash log reporting. If a crash is created, if I do a one-time registration, the crash automatically gets generated with all this information about the device, the OS, the time when this happened, the battery life when this happened, the stack trace of the exception, the logs of, if any, associated with that app, sent directly back again to the developer. So it lets developers know when the crash happened, why it happened, and so on. And then sentiment analysis. This is where your digital marketer product manager came in, where he was trying to figure out how usable your application is. So if you were able to mine your stores, your App Store, your iStore, your Play Store, you were able to mine the reviews from there and get sentiments. Out of 10,000 users who use my product, how many of them gave me a 5 rating, how many a 4, how many a 3? And were any of those ratings actually tied down with the review, and what were the words he used in that review? Can I do some sort of a sentiment analysis by checking that out? And based on all of this, can I then come up with a testing mechanism that can tell me this works? Don't spend time, trying to manually test that out. Let's automate that, we know that works. But these are areas that are of concern, right? This doesn't work. There are crashes that are happening here that are only reproducible in these scenarios. That's why you need your manual testing. So evidence-based prioritization of your testing based on all the inputs you got from the field, that's something that would help you, prioritize how you develop, how you test. So Bluemix is the cloud-based platform that has recently been GA'd. It's come into general availability, and it offers you a variety of cloud APIs that will help you do all of these things. Right from creating your application, doing automated testing of your application, doing DevOps on your application, monitoring usage, figuring out what Git sourcing, doing Git hosting, and then web UI development, web service development. All of these are offered through Bluemix, which offers you cloud APIs to do all of this. There are even services that can enable you to push SMSs based on app usage. It offers you, third-party tools and services as well, such as Twilio and so on. So Bluemix is the platform as a service offering from IBM that helps you use your cloud APIs to bring mobile DevOps into a reality and go away from where we are right now. Okay.
Just wondering, how can we push the tickets like an online revenue store?
So there is a service called Mobile Quality Assurance. What it does is it instruments your application when it goes out into the field. And every time a user is making is giving feedback on your application, it automatically is instrumented to be sent back to the server. And that server is being monitored to find out what is the sentiment associated with that review and so on. So you get all information about which geo this happened from, what was the age range, if you know if they're already logged into Google or Facebook, what was the age range of the user and so on. So you can get a lot of information.
How does it work with the crowd testers?
So the crowd testers are actually people that you've employed from your organization who have registered to test your application. And they are a separate set of users from your actual users or the end users who are going to download it from the App Store. The users, the public users, would not see the tickets raised by the crowdsourced testers.
It's running short of time, so. I mean, should you have any further questions, maybe you can take it one-on-one, which way not. Many thanks, Shweta. It was indeed wonderful. Right? Alright, moving on, we have Mr. Anand, the founder of Last Mile Consultants and also the bronze sponsors for the event, who will be covering emerging technologies and learning challenges.
Very little on services, but a little more on learning, right? I have about 25 years of experience in the industry, primarily in QA testing. Worked with a lot of multinationals and good companies before we plunged and started this company for own 3 years back, right? Next month, we are completing our 3rd year. Journey looks pretty interesting. Both the sides, you know, when we were on the other side on the organization, but as we started this particular entrepreneurial route as well. What I have done is a little different than what we have been hearing and talking about it, right? Because I saw the speakers yesterday. I saw also the speakers today. I heard a couple of speakers who were talking about more of technology, right? So I think the topic that I'm going to talk is very different from the topic that we have heard. But the takeaway for me from this session is basically to incite certain thoughts in you as tester, right? And I'm not sure whether I would be able to incite that, but I will try my best, right? So what I'm talking about is very different. We're talking about emerging technologies. We have heard very eminent speakers yesterday, whether it's in the panel discussion, whether it's in the speakers. You talk about all the jargons in industry has been there in if you look at our 2 days sessions, right? So technology, we have heard a lot. What I'm going to do is correlate that, all right, the emerging technologies, and look at where do we stand from our learning challenges, all right? And that's where I will spend a couple of maybe 15-20 minutes, and then we will probably debate and see, are we geared up for this jazzy stuff that's been talked about in the industries? All the good stuff. We will see. I will just touch upon a few of the things because you have heard a lot of technology. I'm not going to talk technology. I'm not going to talk testing. I'm talking a very different concept. And I'm looking at where do we as testers stand in the industry today, right? Technology, and I would like to thank Shweta. She has done half my job in terms of telling what complexity is. I'm not here to sell the product, right? I'm not sell any technology. I am here to tell you, the technology is coming day in, day out. How are we geared up for that as testers, right? And that's one thing which I want to incite in ourselves. How are we geared up for that, right? Very, interesting presentation. If you look at this slide, so many tools, right? Small logos. I don't know how many of us were able to even capture those logos in our mind. Did we? No. And look at the way the industry is going. Look at the statistics. I mean, I was looking at, you know, so before I go there, let's look at what I have today, right? What I'm talking about is the change, right? Everything is changing, right? The technology is changing, right? Every day you see a new app with the open source, right? The product companies, the cost product guys are competing against the open source because you are seeing, you know, apps coming in daily, or maybe not daily, hourly basis, right? Technology is changing. Tools. Look at the tools that we have been using. Traditionally, what tools we have used and what we are using right now is going for a change, right? What I'm looking at as the traits of a tester, right? That's also changed over a period in time. I started my career in 19. At that point in time, there was no testing as a profession. I was a part of the QA team, right? Things have changed over a period in time. What am I looking at today or going forward as a a competency that I require as a tester? Then I'm talking about transformation. How can I bring that change? What I'm seeing a change. You know, if I want to be a tester, we'll talk about capability building. What is the trend? As we go forward, what do we see as the way of building the capability? The older methods have gone, right? We need to look at something new, intuitive, which is going to last long. And then the expectations from learning as we look at next generation testing, right? So the focus is, like yesterday